What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Casa D18 Studios YouTube channel. And it is time, once again, to step into the war zone. That's right, it's time for another edition of the Weekly Acquisition Report, the show where I, the Renegade, show you, the viewers, the latest additions to my ever-growing media library. As you can tell, I am back in the library of the esteemed university, Chase U. So I must be here to discuss books again. You guys remember my last video, Wrestling Autobiographies, where I showed you some new books that I added to my collection, as well as some books that I re-added to my collection. Gave you guys a little history. I'll run it down again really quickly. Once upon a time in the Casa D18 Studios, the original Casa D18 Studios in Long Beach, California, I had to leave for brighter pastures. I wasn't kicked out or evicted or anything. It's just I was stuck in a rut and I had to leave. I basically just took whatever I could take with me. I made my way to the Inland Empire to live with some friends. Ended up leaving behind all my wrestling autobiographies. My daughter's mom came behind me, grabbed those and some other things that I had left behind, took them to her house in Long Beach, and kept them for me until I was able to get back on my feet. Unfortunately, she didn't keep everything in her garage. She didn't keep everything in her house. She kept it in a box outside the house. So rain, weather, etc., damaged all the books. A lot of them autographed. Autographs that I can never regain. Roddy Piper, Dusty Rhodes, Bobby the Brain Heenan, all whom have passed away since I had their books. So I've been on the hunt to try to regain some of those books and add them back to my library. And if a day comes where I can meet some of these people again, get their books signed again, or for the ones that I never had autographed for the first time, awesome, so be it. If not, c'est la vie, right? So that being said, I have 10 books I'm going to show you. 9 of them are wrestling autobiographies. 1 is music related. I'll do the music one last. But we're going to come into the wrestling books hard and heavy with the most electrifying man in all of entertainment, The Rock says. The Rock's autobiography, which came out in, I want to say it was like 2000, 2001, right on the heels of Have a Nice Day, Mick Foley's first book. The Rock published his book. And while definitely nowhere near as good as Foley's, no disrespect, Rocky, huge Rocky fan, this stuff was still solid. And I had to make sure I got it, re-added it back to my collection, because from the moment I started watching WWF back in 1998 in the Attitude Era, I've been a solid supporter of The Rock. So this book, it meant a lot to me then. It means a lot to me now. And it just had to get back into my collection. Next up is another book that meant a lot to me then. I don't know how much it means now, but the Hardy Boys book. You can already see the WWE logo as opposed to the F that's on Rock's. But I always enjoyed the Hardy's book, and I did have this signed by both of them originally. Hopefully I'll be able to get Matt and Jeff to add back to it at some point. This one was a little bit different, though, because it almost kind of read like an interview where Michael Krugman, the guy who co-authored it with Matt and Jeff, kind of like conducting an interview, and you would get their responses to the different topics they were talking about. It would like, Matt, it would almost read like a script. Matt, what he had to say. Jeff, what he had to say. Matt, reply. Definitely a different book, but I was a huge Hardy's fan. I still am a Hardy's fan. So I definitely had to get this back in my collection. This next one's kind of hard because it's another one that's no longer with us. I don't believe my copy was signed. I could be wrong. It's been so long. But if they only knew. China, the ninth wonder of the world. And this book is very controversial. There's some people that say that there's a load of shit in this book. But Joni, China, said that this was her truth. And that's the important thing. Not everybody's going to agree with everything that always comes out in autobiographies. A lot of people are going to be like, they exaggerated this, they twisted that, but this is her story, nobody else's. So if Joni Lauer feels that this is an authentic representation of who China was, then that's the important thing. We have to respect her for that. Tragedy, the way things went down for her at the end of her life. Hopefully someday, now that Triple H is in charge of things, the Ninth Wonder will get her solo day to shine inside the WWE Hall of Fame. That's what I'm waiting on the most right now. And this next book, I honestly don't remember if it was my copy that was on the bookshelf or if it belonged to everybody's favorite statistician, Statboy Mike. Because at the end of the day, this is his favorite wrestler. Heartbreak and Triumph, the Shawn Michaels story. Statboy is, then, now, forever, will always be a Shawn Michaels fan. So I tend to believe this was his book on the shelf, but I read it too. It was part of our collection. And now I have my own copy, either for the first time or again. And I'm glad to have this back in my archives. You know, the Shawn Michaels of the 90s and the Shawn Michaels from 2002 on, vastly different creatures. And reading his story and how he changed, I love it. I've got nothing but respect for the man. So much so, in fact, that I grabbed his second book also. Wrestling for My Life. The legend, the reality, and the faith of a WWE superstar. With forewords by Paul Triple H Levesque and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So this I've never read, but it's going to pick up where this left off. So I may have to go back and reread this and then go into this. As you can see, much smaller in comparison, but nonetheless just as important of a story. And I gained so much more respect for Shawn Michaels once he acknowledged his part in the Montreal Screwjob, that I'm willing to give this a chance. And I'm more than happy to have this in my collection. Now, while The Rock versus Hollywood Hogan may have been icon versus icon, SummerSlam 2005 featured the man we just discussed, Shawn Michaels, versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And the match was what it was, but it could have been so much better. That's honestly the way I feel about this book, too. It is what it is. Could have been so much better. I have never been a Hogan guy. Never. But you cannot deny the sheer star power of Terry Bollea. You just can't. Pro wrestling, the way it is today, positives and negatives, would not be where it is without two men. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan. There's no discussion. None. And as controversial as both of those names are, you can't dispute me. If you'd like to try, leave your thoughts in the comments. I will reply to you guys. But Hogan's book, read it before. I believe this one was originally my dad's, but when he left to go to Minnesota and start his new life, which nobody's ever begrudged him. Let me just make sure I say that so it doesn't sound like I'm bitter to my dad. But he left his wrestling books with mine and Stat Boys. So I believe this was originally his book, but I now have it back in my collection, back in my display, my grasp, and I added Hogan's second book. Much like Shawn Michaels, I've never read the second book, My Life Outside the Ring. So I'm going to be curious to see what it's about, where it goes. Does it cover his TNA run? But I'm curious because, again, say what you will about the character Hulk Hogan, professional wrestling would not be where it is today without him and Vince McMahon. The next book I'm going to show you guys, you've heard me discuss a little bit, and I even gave a little bit of a rant about it on an episode of Stat Boy Sports Bar. With Becky Lynch, the man. Not your average girl. For those of you that did not hear my rant, I will give it to you again real quick. This book right here, not anything to do with Rebecca Quinn, Becky Lynch, the book itself, but this book right here showed me why what is referred to as brick and mortar stores, but why stores like Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Best Buy, Target are slowly dying out. At least as far as stuff like this goes. You know, Walmart, Target will never go out of business, I seriously doubt. But Best Buy has stopped carrying physical media in their stores. Barnes and Noble is a bookstore, so you would expect them to have a good quality selection of books. But that's where I went to go buy this. On the day of its release, they had no copies. It's not because it's sold out, because I got there right after the store opened. But they had received one single copy of a brand new release book. Put it out prior to its release date. And when it sold, they didn't order any more copies. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We can order you a copy, though." Oh, I want it. I want it now. I am coming to a bookstore to buy a brand new book on the day of its release. And you're telling me you don't have it. And you're telling me the reason you don't have it is your own stupidity. And you're telling me that after selling the only copy that you had, you didn't think, oh, wow, this sold pretty quickly. Maybe we need to get some more. With the exception of Christmas shopping and just the holiday season in general, because my daughter's school tends to do performances because she does choir and stuff at the Barnes and Noble near me. I'm never going to Barnes and Noble again. If I need a book, I will just go online and I will order it. Because they showed me that day that they don't take new releases seriously. And you can't even convince me that it's a hatred towards wrestling, because pro wrestling right now is as hot as it's been in years, arguably the hottest it's ever been. So you can't look me in the eyes and be like, oh, well, we didn't think it would sell. Because it obviously did. The one copy you had sold. Continuing on with that energy, another brand new book that after the experience of the Becky Lynch one that I had, I went on to Walmart.com and ordered it the day that it released, got it a couple days later, shipped to me. Didn't have to deal with stores, didn't have to deal with traffic, didn't have to deal with stupid people. Ronda Rousey's Our Fight. Haven't opened this one yet as I'm still working through the Becky Lynch one, but Ronda Rousey's book, I mean, just look at that right there. How adorable. Right? Say what you will about Ronda Rousey, and a lot of people dismiss her. A lot of people just the venom that she has spewed about WWE since she left. Again, much like I said to China, it's her truth. It's her story. Not everyone's story is the same. I'm willing to give Rhonda the benefit of the doubt, read her book, listen to her tell her story, make up my judgment afterwards. Have you guys read Rhonda's book yet? Let me know. That brings me to my final book. As you can see, the wrestling has left the name. So we're not talking about wrestling anymore. We're going to shift to a music autobiography. If you remember when the Warzone was reintroduced, I showed you 10 records that I had just gotten. One of my all-time favorite artists, John Denver. Take Me Home. I more or less know John's story. Being a fan, doing my research, watching his biopic, just listening to him talk in interviews and listening to his music. I pretty much know this man's story, but I could not pass up the opportunity to get his autobiography. I just couldn't. Much like the music of the Beatles, and I talked about this on the episode of the Warzone where I showed his albums. If you missed that, I'll link it up here. But next to the Beatles, this man and his music have shaped my life more than any other recording artist. And it's with that in mind that I got his book. That's going to just about wrap it up for this episode of the War Zone, the weekly acquisition report, the show where I, the renegade, show you, the viewers, the latest additions to my ever-growing media library. What do you guys think of these books? Have you read The Rock's Autobiography, The Hardy Boys, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, China, the Shawn Michaels or Hulk Hogan books? Have you read the John Denver book? Let me know. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have that conversation, that discussion, that discourse, debate. Do you disagree with my comments that pro wrestling wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan? Let's discuss it in the comments below. I want to take a moment. Thank you guys for coming back with me to the library, Chase University, for another look at the books. Until the next time that we step into the War Zone, I am the Renegade J.J. Williams, thanking you for joining me. I will see you guys next time.